What's up, guys? This is paintball question time. The video series where you guys send me in your paintball questions using that hashtag right there, hashtag PBQT. You could use that hashtag, you know, on the internet in places. You could email me, I guess, if you want. You could send a message via, you know, Instagram or Facebook or something like that. I steal your questions, and then we answer them here on Paintball Question Time. Today we're doing 3 questions, and we're going to start off with Mikey asking, Brad, do you think there is significant room for innovation with paintball guns? Followed up by Will asking, with the LV 1.6 coming out and not the LV 2, what do you think the future of pop valve guns will be? And then Tatzo, I don't know, asked, will there be a new Intimidator soon? So first, Mikey wanted to know if there is significant room for improvement in paintball guns. For sure, I think so. I think that it's difficult, like when we look at anything, right? These paintball guns or whatever we're talking about, we'll kind of look at products and think that they're so good now, you know, like how could they get any better? But like back when I started playing paintball, right, in like 2000, almost everybody at that time was using autocockers and automags. And in that same year, right, like 2000 to 2001, the Angel LCD started to get more popular. The Angel LCD was better really in every way, right? It was simpler, it was more reliable, the rate of fire was higher, it was built better. It was just like a better gun in like every measurable metric. You know, at the time, that gun was so much better than the autocockers and automags. It was weird. It was like, I don't know, it was so much better that it was difficult to kind of comprehend or see where guns could go. It was like, my God, the Angel is just so much better than everything else. We're done. Like, these paintball guns can't get better. But it's funny that 2 years later, I was using an Intimidator, and the Intimidator was, you know, 4 times better than an Angel LCD. So we can certainly get better, and I think we'll continue to see that. And I do kind of feel, though, that we've hit maybe a little bit of a lull in innovation, but it's for certainly not the first time we've seen that, right? I think if we go back to like the 80s, right? If you think 1980, there were really no paintball products. And all through the 80s, we saw all the new paintball guns manufactured, new hoppers, tanks, guns, everything was being made. But then kind of when we hit the early 90s, those semi-auto guns hit the market, and we started to see autocockers and automags kind of take off and be dominant. And all through the 90s, we didn't see all that much innovation. The autocockers and automags kind of stayed the same. I think mainly that is because of like materials and then manufacturing. We were still trying to like machine stuff out of stainless steel on just regular lathes. And it wasn't really until the early 2000s, maybe the late 90s, we saw electronics become a little bit more popular, right? We saw electronic guns become a thing with those Angel LCDs. And then it was easier to manufacture some of these more complex parts with like CNC machines. So I definitely feel like in the 80s is when we saw lots of innovation, mainly because that's when, you know, paintball kind of started. And then in the 90s, we kind of saw those mechanical guns kind of reach their peak with like autocockers and automags. And then in the early 2000s, we started seeing the electronic guns, like with the Angels, the Intimidators, Matrixes. And we also saw like CNC machines, those computer-aided like lathes and machines. They were able to cut like lines into paintball guns, become a little bit more available, so we were getting more complicated paintball guns. But then I feel like maybe in like 2010, we kind of hit a lull again, right? And for the past like 10-ish years, I think paintball guns have kind of stayed a little stagnant. Yeah, stuff's gotten better. I mean, we've got guns like the CS2, which are for sure better than like gun in 2010, but it's not like that much better, right? Like air efficiency is about the same. They're about like just as kicky and about just as loud, and they're about just as easy on paint. So I don't think we've really seen that much innovation in the last 10 years. I think the next big wave of change in paintball guns is probably going to come from 3D printing. Kind of like we saw with the electronics, you know, made electronic guns really popular. I think that 3D printing stuff is going to help, I don't know, hopefully foster or create new complicated or high-end paintball guns. Well, maybe I shouldn't say complicated. Well, yeah, complicated really, because I mean the advantage of the 3D printers is they're able to make complicated designs that the CNC machines are not able to. I mean, that was the problem with the 90s, right? Is that we weren't able to make some of the complicated designs because those CNC machines were just not available. But now with this new 3D printing realm and world of manufacturing, I think that paintball guns, or at least I hope that we're able to take advantage of some of this new 3D printing technology and like innovation, we'll say. So I think so, mainly because of 3D printing and new manufacturing technologies. I don't know. I'm looking forward to it though. And then Will asks, with the LV 1.6 coming out and not the LV2, what do you think the future of pop valve guns will be? Bright, I hope at least. So let's explain what a pop valve gun is first. So a pop valve gun, or I should say a pop valve inside of a paintball gun, we'll explain the pop valve. So a pop valve is kind of like the name would sound. You have to pop the valve to get the valve open. So normally a heavy piece, the hammer, like this piece right here, would travel forward, hit the valve, and then allow air out. That air comes out, paintball gun shoots. It's a very simple design, same design that using Spiders, the Zoden guns, the Tippmans, my Empire Sniper, like we used here to demo the pop valve, uses the pop valve internals. So it's not like they're dead. I mean, there's still a lot of pop valve guns in use. Normally they're using that pop valve style because it's simpler. It's using fewer moving parts. They're normally a little bit more reliable and it's cheaper to make. Hence why we're seeing it in the cheaper guns. And then we have this spool valve design. So the spool valve design just works differently than that pop valve design. And there are so many different spool valves that we're not going to discuss them all here. But they're normally lower pressure, which makes them kick a little bit less. They're a little bit quieter, but normally a little bit less reliable as well. But over the past, I don't know, we'll say 7 years or so, those spool valve guns have gotten much, much more reliable and then kept their low pressure stuff. So they're lower pressure and becoming more reliable, just like those pop valve guns. So they shoot better and they're more reliable now. So a lot of these manufacturers like Planet Eclipse and Dye and MacDev and pretty much everyone has gone to just making spool valve designs. So the pop valve guns have just kind of gone away. Hence, what's the future of pop valve guns? And in the past few years, we've definitely seen an increase in interest in having one of these pop valve guns. And I think mainly that's just because all the manufacturers are making spool valve guns, right? You can't really buy a pop valve gun, and the customers, players, they just want something different. That's why we've seen an interest in the LV2. But rather than making an entire new gun, Planet Eclipse just re-released the LV1 with the 1.6. And that's not necessarily bad. I mean, the LV1 shot really well, but it's just an old gun. I mean, they released the thing 7 or 8 years ago at this point. So it's kind of just lame. I mean, we kind of just wanted something different. I do think that with releasing the LV 1.6, Planet Eclipse is probably going to watch these numbers, see how well the gun sells, and then probably determine if they're going to want to spend the money to research, develop, just make a whole entire new gun. I think that other manufacturers are probably also going to do that. It would be wise for MacDev and Empire and Dye and whoever to watch the sales of the 1.6 and kind of see the interest, because I do think that there's a spot now for someone to come into this market and, sell a pop valve gun just because no one else is doing it. And then Tao asked, will there be a new Intimidator soon? I don't actually know. So I asked Eric Crandall over at Field One. Eric Crandall is the main man at Field One. He's making all those main decisions. Eric said, not anytime soon, but it is something that we're working on. So there will be a new Intimidator in the next few years. So that's good and bad, right? I don't really want to wait a few years, but at least we know there's something coming. So I love the Intimidator. I have owned, 50 maybe. Bought my first Intimidator maybe in the year 2002. It might have been early 2000, 2001-ish, somewhere in there. The Bob Long GZ Intimidator. Here's a picture of me using the GZ Intimidator. This is probably the oldest picture of me playing paintball out at Combat Zone in Oroville, California. Yeah, whatever. I owned many Intimidators. I've had Rippers, Aliases, all kinds of stuff. And then I've owned 4 or 5 G6Rs, the newest version of the Intimidator. I love the thing. Ergonomics are great. They shoot well. Super reliable, very air efficient, easy on paint. I'm a big fan of the Intimidator, or the G6R, I should say. Still today, love them. And I really want one. And I would be happy with really kind of what I wanted from Planet Eclipse to do with the LV2. I want Planet Eclipse, or wanted them to do, is take the LV1 and then just kind of plop on the CS2 bottom, kind of like we've done here. I photoshopped this up to make this LV2 fantasy gun. And I kind of like the same thing with the G7R, right? Take the G6R top, just plop on the force bottom. So you could take the new Field 1 force gun, take that frame and foregrip, pop it onto a G6R. We got a G7R. I'd be very, very happy with that. I really like the force, foregrip and the trigger frame, and then really like the internals and the way the G6R shoots. So I don't want to wait a few years, but if we have to wait a few years for a G7R, oh, I guess we do that. Guys, I appreciate all of you guys who submit questions to this. You can do that by just leaving a comment below. You could use a hashtag right there on Twitter. You could send me a message on Twitter. You could find Twitter information below along with other social media things and links. You could buy one of these hats, or you could buy this hat or one of these hats, Paintball Ruin My Life store.